Good evening, and thank you for joining me to hear my speech about public nursing. I'm campaigning to normalize breastfeeding. And my purpose today is to get my friends and family to support mothers who exclusively breastfeed. And my first question for you today is, would you eat in here?
No.
No, right? So why should a child have to subject to eating in a dirty bathroom? And why should a mother have to feed her child in a dirty bathroom? Breastfeeding in public has been a huge controversy today. More people should be open-minded to the lifestyle of public nursing. Nursing is the biological norm for women. Breastfeeding itself, and more specifically in public, isn't something new. Many mothers choose this lifestyle for the many benefits of themselves and their babies. However, those same mothers are ridiculed into having to nurse their babies in dirty bathrooms, hot cars, and corners of the room with blankets over their child's head. Some women are so afraid to nurse in public that they'll have to leave their homes. And before society transformed into what it is today, the breast was best. Which brings me to my first point, the history and culture of breastfeeding. In earlier centuries, breastfeeding was the only way for women to feed their children. Some women even had wet nurses, which is a woman who nurses and cares for another woman's child when the mother's unable or chooses not to. It wasn't until men went to war and women began working that breast pumps, bottles, and formula came about. Think about the women that live in third world countries who live in poverty and can't afford wet nurses or bottles, formulas, and breast pumps. After further researching the history of breastfeeding, I found a journal written by doctors and nurses from the National Library of Medicine website that mentions in Israel, children were deemed a blessing and breastfeeding was considered a religious obligation. Breastfeeding in public is normal in these countries, and no one is stopping and staring or pointing fingers. Public breastfeeding should be normal in our country too. Secondly, the health risks are a major reason why mothers need to nurse whenever the time occurs. Many of the health risks include clogged milk ducts, mastitis, postpartum depression, and irritability. Clogged milk ducts and mastitis can be cured by a mother just expressing her milk whenever she needs to. Many women develop postpartum depression from feeling socially alienated and publicly ridiculed and afraid to go out in public. They become irritable from frustration from going back and forth to a private place to have to nurse their child. And the mother can also give off the frustration to her baby. Recently, I interviewed an advanced registered practitioner nurse at Lakeside Pediatrics here in Lakeland. And she's also a lactation consultant, and Nurse Wallace gave me the information on health risks and benefits of breastfeeding. A baby should be able to eat anywhere, just like anyone else. No mother should have to feel forced to feed their child in a bathroom. And no child should have to eat in a bathroom. Most mothers who do publicly nurse do it discreetly anyways, but they shouldn't feel forced. I read an article in Time magazine that talked about women being ridiculed for public nursing, and those moms got back at those establishments by voicing their experiences on social media. That caused World War Mom. Other mothers bashed these establishments and forced them to apologize, and one restaurant even posted a sign that they were now pro-public nursing. The benefits of breastfeeding include a healthier baby, they're less likely to get ill, reduces the risk of SIDS, and makes them smarter and improves their IQ score. The benefits of the mother is reducing the risk of her getting breast cancer or ovarian cancer, and aiding in her weight loss. It's also less equipment she'll have to remember to carry with her when she's leaving the house, and there's no bottles to wash. We all know in today's society that sex sells. Women's breasts are used as selling points in advertisements. Some people actually consider breastfeeding to be indecent exposure and say that children shouldn't have to see that. But it's a shame that a child doesn't know what it looks like for her mother to feed her baby. In the Same Time magazine article that I read, I have a quote from the author. It states, "Public breastfeeding is not normal. It should be, but it's not, and that's all tied up in how society views women and their bodies. Still bent on objectifying us and seeing us as vessels for sexual gratification before seeing us as human beings. Women's breast should be a symbol of motherhood and not sexuality." And these two ads, they're advertising beer. What does this woman's breast have to do with advertising beer? Nothing. And when a family goes out to have dinner with their children, there's women parading around with emphasis on their breast. That's showing sexuality and not what they're actually intended for. Do you think these women who choose this lifestyle want a little human hanging around their chest? No. Do you think they're trying to show themselves off? Absolutely not. Because let me tell you, breastfeeding is not sexy. Breastfeeding is a symbol of motherhood. Breastfeeding in public will continue to be a controversy today, as there are no real laws behind breastfeeding in public and only personal preferences. Multiple factors are excluded when debating about the subject. More people should be open-minded and consider the early history and the benefits and health risks of the mother and baby. That concludes my presentation. You ladies have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
What is exclusively breastfeeding?
Exclusively breastfeeding is when the baby is only fed from the breast. No bottles or breast pumps are used in their feeding.
I also have a question. Are there currently any laws against breastfeeding in public?
There's no government laws against breastfeeding in public, but there are, like if a private restaurant has their own laws. Anything else?
No.
All right, well, thank you for joining me this evening to hear my presentation.